45-minute zone 2 run. It's nice today, 75. The humidity's kind of high, but it's not bad. The goal today, stay in a heart rate of 120, 140. It's the final full week of training. It's my first run post-COVID, so I'm kind of interested to see how I do. But today I want to do something a little different. I wanted to share with you all. How I got into running. And this is going to be my full run. So there may be stuttering, random ADHD thoughts that come in. So be prepared. You never know what you're going to quite get. Should be fun. All right. 1 minute in, heart rate 140. Walk for a few minutes. So how I got into running. First, I need to go back to when I was a baby. No, I'm just kidding. Heart rate high. Whenever I was in high school, I went to a very small high school. Excuse me. Went to a very small high school, and there was one girl in my school who ran marathons and distance running. And I remember thinking, what? Why? Why would you do that to yourself? But she was really good at it, apparently. And back then, I had no clue. I just knew something's wrong if you're running 26 miles. That doesn't make sense to me. Fast forward about 10 years. When I was working at a company in Louisville, Kentucky, a friend of mine at work said, hey, there's a half marathon. You want to run this? And I said, no, why would I want to do that? That makes no sense. And he kept saying, just try it, you'll enjoy it. He's like, and if you do one of them, you'll most likely want to do more of them. And I said, no way. I cannot imagine enjoying doing multiple of these. And he kept pushing and stuff, and the company paid for the registration fees. So basically all I do is buy my shoes and train. I was about 210 pounds whenever he asked me to do it. And so I spent months training. I bought new shoes. This is where I learned a lot of things because I went through a lot of different types of shoes because I have very flat feet. And so every running store said, oh, you need these support shoes, you need this, you need that. And every time they'd make my knees hurt or they would be uncomfortable, or I would wear them down really fast. Sorry, I'm trying to repeat the stuff if my watch beeps. Or I'd wear them down really fast and sit there and be like, well, I don't understand. Why do people keep telling me to get these shoes? Then eventually I just kept trying different ones and I found ones that I enjoyed. And then I started to research more and more and realized that since I was 210 pounds, the shoes that I wore, I would wear down really fast. I wasn't the average size runner. I wasn't average build, weight, speed, anything. But I spent the months training and got down to about 205 pounds, between 202 and 205, not below 200. And I show up on race day. And once I show up on race day, I get there, get to the start line. If you never run the Louisville, Kentucky Derby half, it's a very flat course. So it was a good starting course. And so I show up and I start running it. And I'm running, but I'm running, but I feel like I'm being passed by everyone. I'm not even 30 years old at this point, and there are people in their 60s passing me. And I'm like, what in the heck's going on here? I'm like, how in the world at almost 30 am I this much slower than all these people? I'll tell you why in a minute. But I kept running, and I finished the race. Very proud of myself for finishing it. I did about under 11-minute mile. But all these people were like 7 minutes, 8-minute miles that were much older than me. And I, for the life of me, could not figure out why and why I was so slow. I put so much effort in. I had trained so hard, I had no clue what was going on. So even though I had under 11-minute mile, in my mind, that was horrible. I mean, I had no basis to build it off of. Now when I look back, 11-minute miles is not that bad. Yeah, I could have done better probably, but 11-minute miles is not that bad. A lot of the people who signed up there had run for years. They had many, many years of experience on me. They were lighter than me. Some of them ran in college. And yeah, they may have been 60 years old, but they have been running for 30 years, 40 years. And so, yeah, that was my thing. I didn't know at the one time. I just looked at everybody else's time and realized my time's way slower. Something's wrong here. I'm half their age. I should be able to do this easily, right? Not true. So then I finished the race, and as I'm finishing, I was forewarned that it's an uphill walk to the parking garages after the race. Before I started the race, I thought nothing of it. I'm like, oh, whatever. That's nothing. I'm at 13 miles. What's walking a half mile of a hill gonna matter? It mattered. It mattered a lot. I remember walking back to my car. I walked a little bit and my legs were so sore and hurting so bad that I sat down on a bench about halfway there. Horrible mistake. Horrible, horrible mistake. I would have been much better off just continuing to walk, just pushing through it. Because then I gotta stand up and start walking again. And I could barely move. My legs felt really tightened up. And I almost thought about calling my wife and saying, yeah, I need to ride the last quarter mile to my car. But I pushed through and got there. And at the end of it said, never running a half marathon again. This is stupid. I'm in pain. I'm too slow. I don't want to do this anymore. About a month later, I signed up for another half marathon in the fall of the same year. This time I was going to train more. I was gonna get better. I was gonna lose more weight. And I was still about 205 pounds at this point. And then between those two half marathons, life happened. I got another job. Had to move to another state to work. I did actually go back and run it, but it really impacted my training. It impacted everything. Just because the stress of moving, starting a new job, the new job was busier. I actually ended up gaining more weight. I was up about 210 when I did that one. And when I go back and run it, it's a much hillier course. So my pace was around 12 minutes for that one. And I finished it. And I said, never again. Never am I doing this. This is horrible. Why in the world do I keep putting myself through this? Well, that's 10 years ago. Excuse me. That was 10 years ago. And now I've run a lot since then. After I started my new job and got things settled, there was a company called Race 13.1 in North Carolina that had races all over the state. And I would sign up for all of them. I signed up for Greensboro, Raleigh, Charlotte, all of them. And I just kept showing up and running them. People at work hated me because I never trained properly for any of these runs. But yeah, I would go and run them. Would not advise that. It was not fun. And North Carolina has a lot of hills. So if you're not training properly, you can end up injury. But I was young, I was stupid. But even when I was running those, I was getting 10.5 minute miles, 11-minute miles in most of the races. And I thought, man, I'm just doing horrible. Why can I not get under a 10-minute mile? Do keep in mind, I haven't been below 200 pounds for any of these runs. I got down to 195 for a little while there. But ever since then, I've been 200 or more. Once I start getting close to 200, it gets really hard for me to lose any weight. It's just what I've noticed in the past 15 years of my life. So, anyways, so I kept running and my weight's gone up. I actually took when was that? Yeah, when about COVID started and all the races stopped, I took a break. And that's when I went from 210 to like 235. I never realized all the miles I was doing, how much it was helping me stay within my weight, which showed me my diet was bad. Right? I mean, if I gained that much weight and by not exercising, food's my problem, right? It just makes sense. It was never the training, because I was always burning so many calories running. I was just consuming way too many, which is pretty common for people who run, because you do get hungry and you think, I'm burning all these calories running. I can eat an extra cheeseburger or something like that, which is not necessarily false per se, but it's not a good practice. You know, doing it occasionally because you're burning a lot of calories. I mean, in a month, I'm gonna be running a half marathon on the weekend, followed by, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 miles during the week. So I'm gonna be running 20 something miles a week plus. So I'll be running a lot of miles for a lot of calories. But if I eat all of those, I'm never gonna reach my weight goals. So up until Disney, I had only run half marathons, maybe an occasional 10K, but only half marathons. And then, okay, put my heart rate down, too fast. And then I was still living in North Carolina, and then they started the Star Wars series of runs. I still live in North Carolina, and they started the Star Wars series of runs in the spring. You know, worst runs to do in Florida, by the way. They're still fun. Worse temperature-wise, though. Brutal. Anyways, if I was gonna drive down to Florida to do these runs, I was gonna do the challenges, which was the 10K and the half marathon. Sorry, car by, heart rate up. Give it a second to catch up. So what was I saying? Oh, dogs. Give them a second to bark. All right, so what was I saying? Oh, that's right. So I came from North Carolina down and I was gonna do the challenges. I was spending that much money, that much time. I wanted to get the most out of the experience. Well, those were a totally different experience than any run I've ever done before. How do I describe it? I trained for them. I did put in effort. But in these Disney runs, it's about the experience, not the pace. Where when you're running other runs, people are trying to get number 1, number 5, whatever. And I know at Disney people do too, but you miss out on a big portion of the race if that's all you focus on. There's theatrics, there's characters, there's local bands, all sorts of stuff that are out there. And so I go to the Star Wars one and realize how neat Disney does it. And I finished the first challenge and I didn't train properly. I didn't do any of the stuff I probably should have done for that race, but I did it. And by that point, I kind of just got addicted to Disney races. If you get past the people walking that block to narrow areas, things like that, once you get past that, it's a really good race. You just can't go into the race expecting yourself to get your best time. It's never gonna happen. But it's just so much fun. The crowd's fun. It's just a different experience. And so I started that Star Wars run, the inaugural one, and I ran all the Star Wars ones. That's the only ones I ran for a while there. And then they canceled the Star Wars races, and I actually ended up moving to Florida. So now they get all my money because I sign up for all of them, all the challenges. And that's how I ended up doing my first dopey, or my first marathon even at that. I went from doing half marathons, 10Ks, and then I signed up for Goofy. I signed up for Goofy. I didn't want to sign up for Dopey because I had never run a marathon before. And it seemed crazy to do all 4. So I thought, why not a half marathon, a full marathon? Those are perfect, right? Those are the 2 hardest ones. So, morning. Those, oh, sorry, people ran by. Those are the 2 hardest ones. And I said, okay, I'll do them. Ran the half marathon. Well, I've walked most of it because I wanted to make sure and save all the energy for the full marathon the next day. Well, the marathon, not the full marathon, because there's no such thing. They say that at Disney races a lot, where people get annoyed by a full marathon. It's a half marathon and a marathon. Random thoughts. And so I start running the full marathon. I start running the marathon, not full marathon. Start running the marathon. And it was abnormally hot that year. And this was only a few years ago. What would it have been? 3 years ago? 2 years ago? Maybe, but anyways. I start running the full marathon and it's abnormally hot. It was probably in the 80s. It was brutal for a January. And then I get near the water park, which is about mile 22, getting close to mile 22. And I'm walking through the water park. My legs are killing me. I have blisters on my feet, I know it. I didn't take my shoes off by that point, but I had known it just because they hurt so bad. And the balloon ladies passed me. And for those who don't know, the balloon ladies are like the mark of the pace you have to keep if you want to keep racing. There's actually people on bicycles behind them that are the real pace people, but the balloon ladies represent it. That's why you hear everybody terrified of balloon ladies at Disney races. And so I'm walking it, and I'm coming out of the water park around that corner, and I'm like right behind the balloon ladies, and I'm trying hard to keep up with them. And the bike people tell me to get on the bus. And I was so frustrated. I was 4 miles from the end. That 4 miles would have been rough, but I was so close to finishing that. And you get to the end, and they give you your medal for the marathon, but I didn't get my Goofy medal. Rightfully so, I didn't earn it. Even when I do virtual races, I make myself earn it before I get the medal. It's just how I am, but I didn't get the medal. At the end, I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. Marathons are stupid. Never do another marathon. That was my thought process as I walked away. And by the way, we've run 1.25 miles together so far. You probably ran further if you're running faster than me, but so far I've run 21 minutes. Not too shabby. Anyway, this is where my squirrely brain goes all over the place randomly. Keep up. If you can keep up, give it a thumbs up. And if you're enjoying the story, give it a thumbs up. Let others find it. So I told myself, never doing it again. I know, the training was brutal. It's so many hours of your week, training in miles to do a marathon. And so many things that I could push through in a half marathon, I could not push through in a full. That was one of my big learnings was, if I have a minor cramp in a half marathon, in a full marathon, that minor cramp becomes barely being able to walk. You can't just push through, you have to train. You have to put in the work. Most people can't just push through half marathons, but there are things you can push through in half marathons that you cannot in a full. So I started researching, and I learned a lot more about hydration, especially in Florida. With such high heat and humidity, you never know what January is going to be like. Oh, excuse me. You never know what January is going to be like. So, understanding your electrolyte balance, your water balance, understanding like biofreeze and compression socks and compression sleeves to keep the swelling down. All of these things are super important. And yes, in half marathons, I never paid too much to the gear. I just got shoes. That's all I ever really focused on was shoes. I never focused on compression socks. I never focused on anything. Well, come to find out, I was wearing cotton socks. Horrible idea, especially when it's hot and humid and you're running 26 miles. They absorb all the water, which means that your foot absorbs all the water, which just increases the swelling. Thus, makes your run harder. And I've been running like 7 years by this point, and I'd never paid attention to the socks I wore or compression sleeves on my calves. None of this stuff. It just never dawned on me. So then I bought new gear, which is the best part about running, at least for me. I enjoy technology and fun new stuff sometimes. I bought some compression socks, compression calf sleeves, some new shoes. What else did I buy? Headphones that didn't go in your ear. That way I could hear people. And I had only planned to sign up for a half marathon. And then when the Disney Marathon came around, I somehow just said, you know what, let's collect Dopey. I failed at Goofy last year. I want to redeem myself. So I'm going to run Dopey. mean, I don't know what was going through my head. You can't do a half and a full. Let's add a 10K and a 5K to it. You'll be good. Makes perfect sense. Gotta dodge sprinklers, hold on. Morning. But I did. See, I figure where I am a lot. This is where my ADHD brain comes in. I see sprinklers, start dodging sprinklers, and I'm in the middle of a story here. So, anywho, I sign up to do Dopey, and so I start following Disney's training plan that they have on their website for Dopey. I start training. I will say I missed a couple long runs from either being sick or it being rainy or hot or something always came up, and I didn't have a way to run except for outside. So I missed a couple of long runs, but I stuck to the training plan pretty well. And I'm gonna do that again soon. And I'm kind of worried about it because I struggle even more to get up now than I ever have. And so with that struggle, I have to get up at like 4 a.m. when I start doing these long runs to get done before the heat. And that's hard. So, but out of the way, back to the story. So I start training. I do all the runs. One thing I didn't do, and I did this based on feedback of other people that run marathons, is in Disney's plan, they have you actually running a training run of 26 miles. And there's a lot of science and information to say you really don't need to go above 20, 23. You're just prone to injury if you do that. And so I decided to not do the 26-mile training run because I didn't want to injure myself. And that's okay. And these are the videos where I started this YouTube channel, when I started doing these trainings. And, sorry, catch my breath. What I was saying, sorry, catch my breath. Anyways, too many squirrels going on around me. This is where I started the YouTube channel, and for two reasons. One, I was 235 pounds, and I was gonna train to run 48 miles. And I really wanted to try to motivate people. I was 235 pounds, so I really wanted to motivate people to do it and show up and run. Not everyone's as insane as me, but if I can run a Dopey challenge at 235 and almost 40 years old, all you gotta do is train and diet and work. Yeah, it's effort, but you can do it. Anybody can. And so I started recording them for that reason, as well as to keep myself accountable. If I was doing a weekly video, sharing my journey with people, I was more apt to wake up and do it because I needed to show up and record it. That was just a requirement. I had to do it. I was never gonna motivate people to run 48 miles or 5K or 10K or anything if I didn't post and share my journey, even when I had the struggles, even when I didn't run when I was supposed to run, even whenever I couldn't complete a run, whatever it may have been. That was the journey I had, and it was the real journey. And my goal was to lose a bunch of weight. I get down to 220, so I did lose 15 pounds in the training sessions. Come on, birds, I'm trying to talk here. Thank you. I did get down to 220, And I thought the birds were respecting me. They are not. They were just faking it. But I did get down to 220, and I know that's the third time I've said that. It's a proud number. I had hoped to get down to 200 pounds. I was way far away from that. And I show up to run it. And there's a whole video about my journey doing it, but I managed to complete it. And when I finished Dopey, by that point I had also signed up for Wine and Dine, Springtime Surprise, pretty much any race that was open. That's how Disney gets you. You sign up months in advance when your brain's like, this is a great idea. But then you do these races, you're like, why did I sign up for this? So I finished Dopey. Seemed like a very long walk back to the car. I will share that. It's a very long walk to the starting line. It was very hot. I finished with enough time, but all these people talk about all the stuff they get to enjoy along the way, where they're riding rides or eating snacks, different things. And I didn't get time to do that. I was way too nervous about being swept because I was right on the pace to get swept. I was right above it for most of the race. So I wanted to finish more than anything. But I finished the race. And when I finish, you can go back and watch the video and see all of it. But inside, I'm like, I'm done running. I don't want to do any half marathons. I don't want to do full marathons. This is getting too hard on my body. Maybe I should take up biking or something different. That was my thought process, at least. See how easily I go above my heart rate? It's so hard for me. I've been running for over a decade and I'm still staying in zone 2. I run just a few minutes, walk a lot. Run a few minutes, walk a lot. Tends to be the norm. So if you're running and you're trying to stay in zone 2 and struggling, just know it's not just you. Anyway, back to my story. So I finished the race and I'm not doing this again, even though I had signed up for Springtime Surprise by that point, and maybe Wine and Dine, but I had at least Springtime Surprise. I'm like, I'll do Springtime Surprise because I already paid for it, but I'm not signing up for any more. And I'm sure not doing Dopey again. I succeeded at it, so it's a once in a lifetime experience. Let's end on the win, right? That was my plan. That's not how it ended though. So I do Springtime Surprise, and then I signed up for Wine and Dine, or I had signed up for Wine and Dine, did Wine and Dine, and maybe Wine and Dine was before. Either way, I finished Springtime Surprise, and they're like, oh, you know what? Disneyland half marathons are back. And if you sign up for our Disney World Marathon weekend and Disneyland, you get the coast to coast. And I'm like, I've never been to Disneyland. I've never run at Disneyland. This sounds new and interesting. I don't know what's wrong with me. Heart rate's way too high now. And then I thought, if I'm doing it, let's sign up for Dopey again. And then let's sign up for the Dumbo Double Dare, which is a 10K and a half marathon at Disneyland. If I'm traveling all the way to California, I want to make it worth it, right? I think God intervened and said, there is no Dumbo Double Dare open anymore. So you have to do a half marathon. Because I did not get the Dumbo. I instead just signed up for half marathon, which is fine. But I did get a spot in Dopey. And I'll put in a little nugget if you're this far in the video to help you with sign up for Disney races. If you're signing up for a Disney race, go to help in my account before you enter the queue and log in. That way, all your information is pre-populated when you get in the queue. And all you have to type in is your shirt size, your gender, some yes or no questions, and your credit card. But it populates your address, your name, everything else. This will help you to register faster in the race. I very rarely miss out on the race that I want to sign up for. I did miss the Disneyland one, but outside of that, I tend to get in pretty well. And what I do is I just make sure to log in, open up the queue, and I usually open it in 2 browsers because each browser will be its own ID number. And then on my phone, I usually hope I don't get it on my phone though, because it'll take me longer to tap my credit card on there. But anyways, back to the story. So then I signed up for these 2 runs, as well as Wine and Dine this year, as well as now Springtime Surprise next year, which just opened yesterday. So I guess running is, I'm not done with it, or I just forget how painful it is, one of the two. I'm not sure, but either way, I'm signed up for them now, so now I gotta train and show up. These races are very expensive, so I can't waste that kind of money. I gotta put in the effort. Hence brings us to today, why I'm doing these Zone 2 runs. In the past, but full marathon, I just, like I said, I focused on shoes. That was my focus, shoes only. I didn't focus on technique. I didn't focus on any other gear, anything. Just shoes, and I was good. Water bottles, things like that maybe, but nothing really there. Then when I really started increasing the distance, I started to realize I was pushing through these races with brute force. And that would be why I was so sore at the end of the runs. I wasn't like recuperating. I wasn't getting electrolyte balances. I wasn't fueling properly. And all of that became very, very apparent when I ran my full marathon. So then when I trained for W last year, I started researching and changing some things up. I noticed a significant difference. I did not get the soreness that I had got previously. I did manage to push it through the race. Was that I didn't have any blisters. If I did, it was like one tiny one. And it was still warm. It wasn't as hot as the prior year, but it was still warm. But I noticed that I didn't have to push through with brute force. I didn't have to kill myself almost to do these races. I could actually slow down and enjoy them, which is my goal this year when I run Dopey. Is I want to be able to ride a ride, at least one. I want to enjoy the run more rather than just pushing myself to finish it. Because I've accomplished the run, I've done the distance. Now it's about being able to do the distance and enjoy the run while I'm there. So that's my goal this year. To do that, I started researching more. And the new trend is Zone 2 runs, but even when you look back to Jeff Galloway's plan, who does the plan for Disney, most of the runs are supposed to be at a talking, where you can talk while you're running, like I'm doing right now. And most of the time I was never there. I was never in that point. I was always just pushing. My heart rate was super high. And, even when you look at what that plan says, is it may not have said Zone 2, but what it was saying was at a pace that you can talk means that your heart rate's lower. You're not killing yourself to do it. You're running at more a leisurely pace. And that helps build your heart rate for endurance, which is important. When you run any of these races, I don't care if it's a 5K, whatever, you're gonna run in that endurance zone for a part of it. And then when you get to that last mile, you're gonna kick it up because you're just gonna feel the adrenaline and you're gonna run it. And you're gonna run it as fast as you can just to ease it off for the most part. There's always exceptions, but it tends to be what happens is you see that last corner, you see that last mile, last half mile, and you're just gonna sit there and like, I made it, I'm gonna get to that finish line, celebrate. But, so then I focus on zone 2, that's where I focus on zone 2 training and more cross training, so strength training, things like that. When my races start up next month, well, not races, my long runs start up next month, I'm still gonna try to keep a lot of it in zone 2, which means my time's gonna be really long, but I still need to build that zone 2 the best I can, because that's gonna be the critical part of doing all these races and having the energy to go ride a roller coaster or to go do whatever. It may be. So, anyhow. I hope you enjoyed this run and this story. We're at 42 minutes now, so we only have 3 minutes left to finish this run. Didn't realize my running story was gonna take so long. But it was fun. I'm glad I could share with you. I hope it inspired you a little bit to show up you can do it. You don't have to do a half marathon. You don't have to do a full marathon. 5K. I get so excited at these runs when I see people like me or people heavier than me who finish these races and are just in tears at the end of it because they accomplished it. They're so excited for themselves. They're so excited for themselves. Rightfully so. It's not easy. People get frustrated at these runners and things, but most people are very kind to them. Most people want to see more runners running. They want to see people accomplishing these goals. You do get the 1 or 2 people who complain and feel like this should only be elite people, but Disney is much more about everybody running and far less about the elite runner. So it's always a good experience. But I love to see people accomplish these runs. Their excitement at the end, and they're calling their family, and just the excitement in their voice. It's so fun. But I sure do say but a lot. Sorry about that. See if I can run for this last minute without my heart rate going too high. Oh, not gonna happen. Not too bad for a post-COVID run though. It does kind of set you back a little bit. Even though my COVID experience this time wasn't as bad, it will still set me back. It'll set back my cardiovascular health, etc. And now the sun's coming out of my eyes, so I get to be a pirate again. I'd like to record my long runs. My issue is gonna be, it is so dark when I do these long runs because I start so early to get done before the sun comes up, because the heat and humidity is one thing, the sun just whole different ball game. Once that sun starts hitting you in Florida, it's rough. All right, 45 minutes are done. I hope you enjoyed our 45-minute run. Ran 2.48 miles. Let's see what my pace was. Come on, watch. 18:08 pace, not good, but it is what it is. Heart rate, where's my heart rate? 137 average, 152 max. Not too shabby. If you're following along, I want to hear in the comments how your run went today. If you enjoyed this, make sure and give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I will see you tomorrow for upper body workout.